Good afternoon. I'm going to start you off, for those of you who may not be familiar with the game, with a little introductory video to show you what it's all about.
Share this galaxy's fate.
We've uncovered several new technologies, unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen.
Our numbers grow, and so does our knowledge.
It is time that we settle our scores once and for all.
You will regret this, you filthy mongrel.
Let the shrieks of our engines echo in the skies.
Master of Orion. So how many of you have played the original game? Wow, that's a lot. Okay, I gotta ask, first game, second game, third game? Okay, not so many. It's okay. So Master of Orion, this is a very innovative game for its day. It was the foundation of 4X gameplay. In fact, the term 4X was coined actually for Master of Orion. Well, we had to bring this game into the 21st century. It's a game about the future, but it comes from our past. My name is Keeling, and I'm the director of product vision at Wargaming over the Master of Orion game, directing the design and development on the reboot of this project. I hold a master's degree in video game production and design, and I've worked on such games as Panzer Elite, Zollner, America's Army Operations, America's Army Soldiers, Twilight War, Order of War, World of Tanks, mostly military games. I'm also retired from the US Army. It's a good connection. The original Master of Orion game was published in 1993 by Microprose in Baltimore, but it was developed by Simtex in Austin, Texas. You might guess I'm from Austin, Texas. I got my cowboy boots on. As it turns out, our Wargaming office in Texas was about 1 kilometer down the road from the old Simtex office, with just 20 years of sort of difference. Master of Orion 2 was an extremely successful game, and is considered the peak of the genre. Most of the Space 4X games that are out there in the world today are based on Master of Orion 2, the original. And of course, the third one in the series, Master of Orion 3, which didn't do as well as the first two, probably reached out a little bit too hard, too many things, tried to be too many things to too many people, and was pretty buggy on release. But that won't happen to us, because we're using Unity. As you may have guessed, I'm not a developer. I couldn't write a line of C# if my life depended on it. I'm also not an artist. I can't even draw a stick figure. So I oversee projects because I have to do something for a living. In this case, I'm not going to talk too much about Unity proper. If you're looking for lines of code in this presentation, you're not going to find any. But I am going to tell you about this game. The legacy of this game, Master of Orion, is important to us because we love it. I love it. I played it. Our CEO loves it. He credits it as one of the games that helped him to strategize, to learn strategy, to plan with few resources, to diplomatize with other people, to think about what he's going to do way ahead of time. And of course, now he runs a successful game company, fairly successful. And if this really, really is a good formula for success, I recommend playing a lot of 4X games. So what was important to us from the beginning was not to repeat the game that we played in the 90s. We had to have a balance, right? We have to make the game for our older selves. Our older selves have jobs. Our older selves don't have as much time as we used to. We have families. We're not allowed to play as much. I can't spend my entire weekend playing Master of Orion, living on Mountain Dew and pizza, and then blow off all my college classes on Monday so I can sleep. It's not that kind of game anymore. We also had to appeal to a new audience, because the 4X game crowd is very hardcore. And we wanted to appeal to the new generation of gamers. There's a lot more gamers out there now than there were 20 years ago. And to reach out to those gamers, you have to be able to get into their space. You have to present to them. They have to have a game that's full of aesthetics. It has to be approachable, easy to get into, easy to understand. But yet, it still has to be very deep, very full of strategy. We didn't want to play. So, for example, Master of Orion 3 was a little bit like playing a game of Excel spreadsheets with a few pictures. We don't want to have that. We wanted to have numbers that were easy to understand. So, and we also wanted to play with our own children. But on the other hand, there's this hardcore group of 4X gamers, like myself actually, who played the game 20 years ago and have these deep expectations of this game. This is the famous franchise Master of Orion. So our goal is kind of, if we have maybe 10% of the players saying the game is too much like Master of Orion original game, and if we have another 10% that say it's too little like the original game, then somewhere in between, we're pretty successful. On the other hand, we also knew that a lot of these hardcore players were going to come at us with pitchforks and torches. And of course this happened, but we were ready for it. Here's something that we could not do. We could not bring that back, this game, with 256 colors and MIDI music and pixelated graphics. We had to bring it into the modern age with modern technology. So, for example, with Unity, we were able to bring in all of the 3D effects. We have beautiful music, orchestral score, actually composed by the original composer from the first game. And all of these things are made possible by the technology that we've had to leverage to do this. And this made it easier for us to focus on things like core gameplay, like the mechanics, like making the game believable, keeping the original storyline in there. We had this technology to leverage. Still, the game has to be deep, it has to be challenging, it has to be fun. Here's what this same kind of screen looks like now. We have 3D models. They're fully animated. They're voiced by famous actors. They're still snarky, just like the original game. They're still making sarcastic comments. They still have no emotions and don't understand why people do. But that's OK. We kept the feel of the game by hiring 5 consultants from the original series. They helped us stay true to the lore. They helped us stay true to the actual artwork. We learned a lot from the original art director. Again, the music, which was composed by the original composer. And by having the producer and other designers on board, they were able to keep that spirit alive in the game. So we had to be consistent with the original game's vision. The story has to be from Master of Orion 1. But on top of that, we also had to bring it into the present. There's been over 20 years of 4X game development since the original Master of Orion came out. We had to take that into account. We had to look at the games that were successful. If we want to break out from the 4X hardcore audience, which is only a few 100,000 players in the world, we had to look at the 4X games that were successful. A real obvious one is Civilization, right? Civilization 4 was the first breakout 4X game. Sold 1.5 million copies. Before that, they were all selling only a few 100,000. Civ 5 sold 7 million, including DLC packages. That's tremendous. We'd love to leverage something like that. And this year, as it seems, is the year of 4X. There are so many good 4X games coming out this year. Civ 6 is coming out later this year. We've had Polaris Sector, Stellaris. We've got Master of Orion. All these games are kind of pointing to an advent of 4X gaming. And to be honest, some of these games are very, very hardcore, while others, like ours, are less hardcore, more fun. So hopefully we'll bring in a lot more players into the genre and into the audience. So in making this new artwork, we poured over the original sketches, the original art from the games, screenshots, all these kinds of things. We worked with these guys till we knew that we had it right. So we not only had to be consistent with this vision, we had to bring in these other new people. Each race's emperor and advisor had to reflect aspects of the game's their gameplay, their essential nature in the game. The Darlok, which are my favorite race, they were hooded, cloaked spy masters. They were humanoid, but they had these jarring dissimilarities to humans. We emphasized their unusual proportions. We kept the hood and cloak as symbols of their shady nature. They became true space ninjas. Now, in the past, they didn't look that great. So we had a lot of opportunity to expand on what was there. You can see in 1993, they were just a cloak, right? Empty suit. In 1996, they were still a pixelated 2D figure, but you could at least see that there was something underneath there. And now we have this full 3D animated voiced figure. So they didn't always look as good as they do now. Another thing we had to keep in mind was their costuming, their settings. The Alkari originally, were just a kind of a bird-like race, and you just see a headshot, a silhouette. In our case, we had to consider where would they live, what kind of clothes would they wear. They're very honorable, lofty, noble. So, and in fact, this emperor is voiced by Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, who, as I like to remind people, he had many more lines in Master of Orion than he had in Star Wars 7. Anyway, so they live in a city in the sky. They have no fear of heights or open spaces. They have traditions of chivalry and honor, so we dress them in kind of medieval clothing. Their ships also reflect their essential nature as birds. They look like beaks. They have these small vestigial wings. They are beautiful and iconic. Their Doomstar, which represents the height of their construction of ship technology, is kind of an egg, right? Like the entire race's future rests in that Doomstar, because each race can only have one. And of course, we had to have really awesome voice talent. As I mentioned, Mark Hamill. We have Q from Star Trek. We have several people from Star Trek, actually, like Dwight Schultz, who is also on the A-Team, but he's also Barclay in Star Trek Next Generation. Huge cast. Lieutenant Worf. So this was really good for us. We had voice actors who represent the peak of the science fiction genre. These are the kind of, for us as nerdy developers, this was like really incredible experience to be able to direct these guys, because not only are they talented, but they were in Firefly, Star Wars, Star Trek, and all these other things. And of course, we had to add something, right? We couldn't just say, we're going to take the original 10 races from Master of Orion and the Orion Planet and the Orion Guardian and do nothing else. We had to add a little something to kind of spice it up. So we added the Terrans. And you remember maybe an old Star Trek episode called Mirror, Mirror, where they ran into their alter egos in the evil side of an alternate reality. Or in the Wrath of Khan, the Khan's people were super warriors, super evil, kind of diverging from the Human Federation. And the Human Federation in Master of Orion is very much like Star Trek. It's very nice and clean and happy and peaceful. It's what we idealize ourselves as human beings for the future. Right? But these guys, these are what we could be if we don't clean up our act. So we added that to as well as the voice of Freddy Krueger, the Nightmare on Elm Street, to the Khan, to make him sound very evil. In fact, I think if he said to me, like, would you get me a cup of coffee? I'd think he was going to kill me. He just sounds like that. So far I've talked about a little bit of aesthetics, the art, the music, those kinds of things, but not much about the soul of the game, right? Design. And this is really my passion, again, because I can't code or draw. So I like to watch people have fun. I like to manage people too, but I'm not an accountant. I don't like to juggle numbers. And in a game like this, I mean, look how complicated this screen is. It's full of mini screens and numbers and things to balance. And it's just not appealing. It's not fun. It's not intuitive. It's the kind of thing we wanted to avoid. And this is a management screen, planetary management screen from Master of Orion 3. So this is ours, actually. This is a couple of cycles ago. But you can see the numbers are smaller. There's iconography to help you to figure out where your population is. There's a build queue that shows you where you're building things and where you can add new buildings. And each of these has depth. So a lot of players will go, well, that's too simplistic. This is really not the Master of Orion I remembered. However, if you hover over each of these items, they have these deep tooltips that show you all of the calculations that go into them. So if you're a hardcore player and you want to go, OK, I'm going to adjust every little thing in this game, you can absolutely do that. In fact, if you click on the building structures and you look at those, you can scrap them all. You can find out exactly what they add. You can see all their specifications and things like that. So while we give a good overview on this screen, there's a lot of depth as well. We don't want to overwhelm people with the details. Now, in technology, the original game had 8 different technology groups, and it was always the same techs. You had to choose one, unless you were a creative race, then you get all of them in each group. But they were very straight, and they only went one way. You went down deeper and deeper into that same tech structure. So this isn't really that flexible. It's not very intuitive, and if you really want a technology that's a little ways down, you have to go through these techs that maybe you don't want or that don't provide anything that's valuable to your race. So we still have to have that complexity under the hood, but we want to have better decision making. We want to have it more interesting. So one of the things we adopted was a tech tree. Now this is more civilization-like, obviously, but it gave us so much more flexibility. You can actually sort all the technologies by type by clicking on the drop-down and saying like defensive technologies or offensive technologies or economy technologies. You can search for specific ones in the search bar. You can set up a chain of research so that if I want to go for astro construction, it'll automatically begin searching all the other researching all the technologies ahead of time up to there. And again, there's a lot of depth in the screen that's hidden. This is supposed to be intuitive and easy to play. If you hover your mouse over any of the icons, it shows you all of the details of each of the technologies in that tech node. Diplomacy is another area where we had to shine. Diplomacy in the original game was mostly a story you told yourself in your head. All you had was one picture. There was no voice. There was no real text of any kind. There was only a few ways to interact. Our game now has actually more lines of dialogue per emperor than Civilization, Civ 5. We have a lot of different choices and a lot of different opportunities. So we made diplomacy wider, and we also made it deeper. So not only does it look better, and sound better and feel like a real story, but there are so many different things, and you can't even see all of them on the list. There's all different kinds of treaties, pacts, agreements, exchanges, demands, declarations, and all these things that you can make. And of course, we've layered this with racial strategies and racial tendencies. So that way, each one feels like it has a kind of a unique personality. Not so much when you play it, because you're not restricted by those things as the player, but when you're playing against the AI, you'll be able to see that each race acts differently. And most of that is just going into the game now, at this point, now that we've built all the features in that are functional. So helping us to maintain this vision, as I said, are members of the original team. Jeff Johannigman, who's the original producer on Master of Orion. And fortunately, like I said, it happened to be in Austin, Texas, right down the street from our office, so it was easy to bring these guys in and have lunch and have meetings and get their feedback on the game. And most of them are not in the game industry anymore, and they're really, really excited to be back on this project. So Jeff D. was the original art director. David Govett, I already mentioned, is the original composer. Alan Emmerich, who, before he actually joined the team, he coined the phrase 4X Games as a reporter for Master of Orion, and he co-wrote the original strategy guide for the first game with Tom Hughes, who was also a designer. Now Unity, yes, we did build the game on Unity. That's obvious, right? Why wouldn't we? We have a mixture of 2D elements, 3D elements. We built on multiple platforms, Mac and Linux, as well as PC. There are a lot of advantages to this. We actually have 8 separate SKUs. So What went right? Well, starting with Unity 4 at the time allowed us to iterate on a beautiful prototype very quickly, bring new developers on board with a lower amount of retraining. Moving from Unity 4 to Unity 5 brought a lot of advantages, and it was very straightforward. We were putting out, again, onto the multiple platforms. So we had Apple, we had Linux. We used Perforce for everything, and it was a seamless integration. And we also used Jenkins, and that was very helpful. What could have been better about working with Unity? Well, mostly it was really great. Scaleform, not so much. We actually, now that Unity 5 is out, has a much better integrated solution than Scaleform. If we'd known that when we first started making the game, we never would have used the Scaleform. Had a lot of memory leaks. And we also used, of course, Unity. And Unity's bug finding and fixing tools, very valuable. So unlike our most popular and well-known titles, which you may have heard of because there's 100 million plus players playing them, World of Tanks, World of Warplanes, World of Warships, and those games, those are free to play. And that was one of the biggest concerns that our communities had, was that we were going to free to play Master of Orion. Of course not. It's a very traditional game. You buy it once, you play it forever, retail model. This is a very old school game, and we wanted to treat it with the old school respect. So we haven't gone quite as far back as physical packaging and floppy disks yet, but that would be kind of ridiculous. I think the new game would require 800 floppies, so probably nobody's going to want to have that. So we're selling the game on Steam, and again, any game engine plugs in very well, but Unity really excels at that. And on good old games. The digital distribution model is good. Iteration is valuable. We're also using other lesser-known, probably, retail outlets like Gamersgate, Gamazavr, and OnePlay, mostly in the CIS region. So early access is fantastic. This is one of those things that we weren't sure we were going to do. It kind of fell into place as a first publishing said maybe we should do this to kind of build up hype. And then as developers, we were like, we could really leverage this and use the community to help give us great feedback. They're going to find some bugs that you're not finding in QA, no question about it. And they're going to give you some feedback, and not all of it's going to be good. And believe me, that's where the torches and pitchforks came in. So they're not afraid to talk about your early access phase 1 game as if it were your final version launched game. They have the full expectations of a polished game, and you're not really going to provide that in early access in the first phase of the game. So we released it in early access both on Steam and on Good Old Games. And it worked really well. It's still working really well. We're in early access phase 4 right now. So we've been 3.5 months into this. This is pretty good. We've got tons and tons of feedback. We've released new features each month, and there are things I would do differently. For example, we did not go in feature complete into early access 1. We figured we'd finish up a couple of the features during early access 1, early access 2, but we found that we had so many things that we hadn't anticipated, that was so much valuable feedback we were getting, that what we should have done was gone in full featured and then only use that time to balance and polish AI and make changes that were made sense to the community. And we would have done that differently, but we still would have definitely kept stayed in early access. We decided from the outset that it would be at least a 3-month process, which was smart because right now, like I said, we're in month 4, and 1 or 2 months is not enough to actually iterate on any of the feedback that you get. So expect to, you take a month to get the feedback, take a month to fix it while you're gathering the new feedback. And it helps to have really great community people that are gathering this feedback as well, and organizing it and sorting it and everything. Because you get, you've all been on forums. Only 2 to 5% of your players actually go onto the forums. Of those, 80% are there to complain. So don't take that like that's your average player. Like I said earlier, you have maybe 10% of the players think you're too much like the original game, and 10% think we're too little like the original game, and that's okay because the 80% in between, they're playing the game, and they're enjoying it. I like to actually relate it to, okay, I'm still a nerd here, but to Star Wars, The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams, a lot of people complained that the movie was just way too much like the original, original Star Wars, A New Hope. Almost frame by frame, you could follow the kind of story. But yet, there were also like 10% on the other end that said, no way, this isn't anything like the original. So he balanced that pretty well. And we're trying to do the same kind of thing, probably not with several $100 million. Okay, is this working? All right, this is working good. So you're going to get a lot of bad reviews right off the mark. We actually maintain a mostly positive review status, even though it's early access, and a lot of players don't know what to expect out of early access. Some players, again, this is Master of Orion, everybody has their favorite feature from the original game, their favorite race, their favorite thing, and if it's not included in there, they're going to thumbs down your game. Doesn't matter how good the rest of the game is. Now, over time, this is building back up. It's picking up. The quality of reviews is getting better. And we know that at launch, that's when we're going to really see a lot more players come in. Right now we're at maybe 20% of our total player base. We're going to have the other 80% come in after launch. They're going to have a fully polished, finished game. They're going to be very happy. And of course, those scores are going to continue to go up very quickly. So we're not worried about it, but we're maintaining, trying to maintain a good attitude. There's trolls on the forum. Don't feed them, but they're going to be there. So also leverage websites that are related to your community. Because it's an existing type of game, Space Sector and Explorminate, for example, are excellent resources for 4X gamers who love space games. And so immediately we brought them in, showed them the game, even before Early Access 1, and we offered to do interviews and things like that and explain the game to them and talk to them. And we were very active on their forums, not only discussing them, discussing the game on their forums, but also getting feedback, like gathering up what they say and what they expect from the game. And that worked very well for us, too. And, of course, we have our own forums, and we also have the Steam forums. If I did it over again, I would not bother having our own forums. It divides the community up into too many places. The Good Old Games forums are not very active. Most of the players go from there, actually, to Steam. In fact, some of the players say, I know it doesn't show I have the game on my Steam account, but I got it in Good Old Games. The forums on our own website kind of split the community up because they must have already bought it from Good Old Games or Steam, 99% from Steam. So I would recommend just sticking with the Steam forums for the community. But they were very active community. So aside from community feedback, we also gathered numerical data, not only from, we did UX tests, play tests, kind of, what's your first 10 minutes of gameplay like? Give us some think aloud feedback. We did everything that we could like that. But we also gathered data inside the game. Some of the game data that we got was things like which race wins the most, which victory condition wins the most, because unlike the original game where there were only 2 victory conditions, we have 5. So we wanted to make sure that they were balanced with each other, that the length of time that it would take to play out the game. For example, if you play technology victory, will it be quicker than a conquest victory? We wanted all of the victory conditions to be achievable within a certain amount of time, which we set at 500 turns. And 500 turns, if you remember playing the old games, You could spend easily an entire weekend playing a 20 or 30-hour game. We wanted to consolidate that down, make it more approachable, so that you could complete an entire game and win the game within 5 to 8 hours, depending on the size of the galaxy map that you chose and the number of races and things. But of course, you can also play a lot longer if you want to. You can, in fact, ignore your victory condition and continue playing in many cases. So this was very good balanced data and feedback for us. We also got more information from, for example, Steam. Their backend showed all of our sales, our regions, validated, in our case, our expectations of where the market was, but also gave us some surprises. So, for example, we knew that the game was going to sell primarily in the West. And about 80% or so of sales are Western Europe and the United States, about evenly split. What we actually didn't expect was anybody here from Germany? So German players are buying the game at double the rate of American players, the highest rate of purchase of any country in the world for this game. And we didn't even release the German language pack until a month after we started early access. So really, it's unexpectedly popular in that region, which to me says, wow, we should have done German voiceovers too. So additional data, of course, is things like sales slices, and how much income we're getting proportionally. I didn't put any dollar numbers up there, I hope. Okay, good. Just the percentages, but this allows us to figure out where our PR efforts should go, where our publishing needs to be active, which of our communities we need to listen to the most. And this is very valuable to us. So we've learned a lot of things from this process. We brought back an old game. I mean, let's face it, 20 years ago, this was top of the line, but now it's not. So there's a lot of good ways to do that. Engaging the community, bringing back some of the original developers. I can't think of another game that's been a reboot that has brought back original developers onto the project, even pulling them out of their jobs at other places, including things like selling cars. So they were very excited to be back on. Involve the community gradually. Don't throw everything up front because you'll just be overwhelmed by your feedback. Get it. Like I said, we involved the websites first, and then we did early access, and we started getting player feedback. And that worked out to be a very good approach for us. And managing community expectations is very hard with a respected franchise like Master of Orion. They, like I said, they really have, each has their own idea of what makes the perfect Master of Orion game. I have received, in all the other games I've made, I have never received hate mail. I have actually not only received hate mail, I've received hate Facebook and hate physical paper mail with a fake return address. Like, wow, people, it's a game. Okay, we're doing our best. We love this game too. No death threats. Just quit your job. You should be fired. To the CEO, like crazy stuff. But on the other hand, don't hate the community. The community is where you're going to get your best feedback. We've made so many changes based on community feedback. We knew, for example, that the AI was weak, but we didn't know how weak. And so we've had to do a lot of iterating on the artificial intelligence for the races. We've had to rebalance a lot of things. Now that we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of games played, we have all that data. We can see where there's unbalanced victory conditions and unbalanced races. We're tweaking all of those things. We also found out which interfaces were really broken. We actually introduced a new interface in Early Access 3 for ship design, and in Early Access 4, we removed it and returned to a better version of the old one. It was that bad. But if we'd launched with that, we would have had to been, you have to run around for a month after launch it would have been a disaster. We found it out in Early Access, we fixed it, it's easy to polish, it's working great. So these kinds of things, help us to make a better game, to be more involved with the community, and to get the kind of game, to get your game right. When it's if you're making a game for the first time and there's no IP associated with it, you can do pretty much whatever you want. Nobody's going to know the difference. But if it's a classic IP like this, you really have to not only know the game, not only have the right people involved, but you definitely have to listen to your community. Those are going to be your evangelists.